The pain lasts for 24 hours, hands tremble for a week, and the elder's eyes watch calmly, waiting to see if you'll cope or give up. Because here, in the Satere-Mawe tribe, becoming an adult isn't a celebration, it's a test of endurance. And if you haven't endured the bites of hundreds of bullet ants, then you're not ready to be called a man. Here, there are no diplomas or career ladders. Here, there are gloves woven from palm leaves, inside which the jungle's most painful creatures await their moment. And if you put them on, then you've accepted the rules of the game, where losing isn't a failure, but an opportunity to try again. That's how the Satere-Mawe live, a people who aren't afraid of pain, a people who have turned suffering into a way of learning to survive, a people for whom adulthood isn't an age, but a readiness to face the worst that the Amazon can offer. They're not like us, and that's the whole point, because in their world, survival dictates different laws and different ways to prove to yourself and the tribe that you deserve to live on, where the jungle begins with a ritual. While in the cities, young men are preparing for graduations and universities, in the heart of the Brazilian Amazon, on the banks of the Andira and Marau rivers, the boys of the Satere-Mawe tribe undergo a completely different initiation. Here, there are no festive suits or photo shoots. Here, there's the forest, ancient traditions, and an insect whose sting scientists have recognized as the most painful in the world. The Satere-Mawe are a people living in remote areas of the central Amazon between the states of Amazonas and Pará. Their territory is dense jungle, narrow igarapé rivers with cool water and swift rapids, an abundance of açaí, tucuma, and pupunha palms, a world where hunting and gathering still determine the rhythm of life. They call themselves the Central Forest Indians, and until the beginning of the 20th century, they preferred to build their villages deep in the forest, near the sources of rivers, far from prying eyes and influences. There, where there are many animals to hunt, where the children of Guaraná grow, that's what they call the wild seedlings of the plant that they domesticated long before the arrival of Europeans, and which has become their sacred symbol and source of income. Who are the Satere-Mawe, and why are their traditions so important? The Satere-Mawe aren't just one of the many indigenous tribes of the Amazon. They're a people with a rich mythology, a complex social organization, and a deep connection to the nature that has surrounded them for millennia. According to 2014 data, the Satere-Mawe numbered about 13,350 people, living in family settlements called CTU. Each CTU is a space where an extended family lives under the authority of the clan leader, who organizes production, distributes work among sons and sons-in-law, and convenes relatives for collective pushiruna works, during which they clear fields for manioc and guarana, weed plantations, and process the harvest. Women take care of the home, children sew, prepare manioc flour, and process hides. Men hunt, repair harnesses, dry meat, and roast guarana. From an early age, children participate in family work, helping to clear the area of snow and prepare supplies. There's no idle sitting here. Here, everyone knows their job and performs it with cold precision dictated by the necessity of survival. Central to the material culture of the Satere-Mawe is tesume, the skillful weaving of stems and leaves of karana, aruma, and other Amazonian plants. Men create sita, baskets, tipiti, cylinders for squeezing poison from wild manioc, fans, bags, hats, walls, and roofs. Each item is functional and created for survival in the humid rainforest. But the most important symbol of Satere-Mawe culture is the porantim, a wooden staff about 1.5 meters long, covered with geometric patterns painted white. In shape, it resembles a carved paddle, but its attributes are both spiritual and social. For the Satere-Mawe, the porantim is the equivalent of a constitution and a sacred book, possessing magical properties capable of predicting the future. Myths about the origin and war of the beginning of Satere-Mawe history are carved on it. The Porton team represents the political, judicial, religious, and mythical spheres of the tribe's culture. A sacred plant and source of strength. It's impossible to talk about the Satere-Mawe without mentioning guarana. This people is considered the inventor of guarana culture. They domesticated the wild liana and created a method of processing it that's still used today. According to Satere-Mawe cosmology, guarana appeared from the buried eye of a deceased child ancestor, which explains not only the shape of guarana seeds, they really do resemble human eyes, but also its sacred status. Guarana is considered a plant with spiritual power and is ceremonially turned into a drink that the Satere-Mawe consume in large quantities. Today, guarana, produced commercially in other regions, is widely used in the production of soft drinks and energy drinks around the world. But for the Satere-Mawe, it remains not just a raw material, but a part of their identity. They've developed a successful fair trade guarana business that brings regular income and is one of the reasons why the Satere-Mawe managed to survive and thrive while preserving their culture. The territory where the children of guarana grow and where the Satere-Mawe collect, process, and ritually use this plant remains sacred to them. Guarana plantations located in each family's sitiyu require constant care, weeding, harvesting, and seed processing. Men roast guarana on bonfires, women help in the preparation of manioc flour, and children learn to recognize plants and care for them. The first contact and the shrinking territory. The Satere-Mawe story is a story of resistance and adaptation. According to oral traditions shared by the tribe's elders, the ancestors of the Satere-Mawe lived in a vast territory between the Madeira and Tapajós rivers, the Tupinambara Islands in the Amazon to the north, and the sources of the Tapajós to the south. They call their place of origin, where their mythical heroes live, Nosokim. It's located on the left bank of the Tapajós in a rocky region of dense forest where the rocks speak. The first contact with white people occurred in 1669 when the Jesuits founded the Tupinambarana mission. In 1698, the Andian River welcomed the missionary Father João Valadão. But in 1692, after the Satere-Mawe killed several white people, the colonial government declared a just war on them. Most of the Indians, warned in advance, fled, and only a few resisted. From the moment of contact with white people, and even before, due to wars with the Munduruku and Parintintin tribes, the original territory of the Satere-Mawe was significantly reduced. In 1835, when the largest rebellion in the Amazon against the central government broke out after Brazil's independence, the Cabanage Rebellion, the Satere-Mawe, along with the Munduruku, the Mawe from the Tapajós and Madeira rivers, the Mura from the Madeira River, and groups of indigenous people from the Negro River joined the rebellion. They captured the cities of Belém and Tapajós, but were eventually forced to surrender in 1839. Travelers' reports confirm that the Satere-Mawe territory had indeed been shrinking since the 18th century. The traditional territory is considered to be the area between the Marmelos, Sukunduri, Abacaxis, Parawari, Amana, and Mariaquan rivers. These same reports confirm that the cities of Maués and Parintins in the state of Amazonas, as well as Itaituba in Pará, were built on the sites of Satere-Mawe settlements, which coincides with passages from the oral history of this people. In 1978, when the process of demarcating the Satere-Mawe territory began, the villages, settlements, groves, cemeteries, and areas used for hunting, fishing, gathering, and movement were located in and around the Marau, Miriti, Urupidi, Monjuro, and Andira rivers. The Satere-Mawe considered this territory their own, although they were aware that it represented only a small part of what had been their ancestral land. For them, it was a privileged part of their territory that they had managed to preserve. Today, The Satere-Mawe continued to lead a traditional way of life, relying on the forest for survival. But they've also adapted to modernity, developing a guarana production business and protecting their lands from invasions, mining, and deforestation. The Wawamat ritual as a cultural adaptation for survival. It's in this context of a deep connection with the forest, the need to protect the territory, to hunt, to withstand the dangers of the jungle, that one of the most famous customs of the Satere-Mawe is born, the initiation ritual with bullet ants, known as Wawamat. This ritual isn't just an exotic tradition or a display of cruelty. For the Satere-Mawe, it's a sacred rite of passage that has been practiced for centuries and is now more important than ever, as it helps preserve the identity of the people in the face of the pressures of modernity. Anthropologists see Wawamat as a unique social adaptation that helps to understand the evolution of human communities and the influence of the environment on cultural development. In a society where survival depends on the ability to withstand pain, hunger, fatigue, the dangers of predators, and hostile neighbors, transitional rituals serve not only as a symbolic marker of adulthood, but also as practical preparation for the real challenges of adult life. The bullet ant. When the sting is compared to a gunshot. Before talking about the ritual, it's important to understand what kind of creature the Satere-Mawe are dealing with. The bullet ant, Paraponera clavata, is one of the largest species of ants in the world, inhabiting the lowland rainforests of Central and South America, including the Amazon. This ant has one of the longest foraging ranges of ants and is fiercely territorial. But its real claim to fame lies in its sting. The bullet ant, scientists say, inflicts the most painful sting of any known insect in the world. The sting can leave the victim in agony for 24 hours or more. The bullet ant tops the Schmidt Sting Pain Index along with the tarantula hawk wasp. Justin O. Schmidt, the creator of the Insect Sting Pain Index, describes the bullet ant sting like this: causes immediate, excruciating pain and numbness to the point of feeling like you're being pressed with a pencil, as well as tremors in the form of a completely uncontrollable desire to shake the affected part of the body. The venom of the bullet ant, delivered through a stinger similar to that of a wasp, rather than through a bite, as in most common ants in Europe and North America, can cause muscle paralysis and hallucinations along with this terrible pain, with symptoms lasting up to 24 hours. The bullet ant is also called 24 horas, 24 hours, precisely because the pain from a single sting can last a whole day. It's definitely an insect to avoid at all costs. But in the Brazilian Amazon, the Satere-Mawe intentionally endure the stings of these ants, or rather, the boys do, undergoing an initiation rite that introduces them to the most terrible pain that the jungle can offer. How the bullet ant initiation ritual takes place. The Wawamat ritual isn't a one-time test. It's a long, multi-stage process that can stretch over years and requires the participant to go through the pain repeatedly, dozens of times. Preparation begins with the men who will participate in the ceremony going into the forest to collect bullet ants. Unfortunately for them, this already puts them at risk of being stung even before the ceremony itself begins. The elders use smoke to drive the ants out of their colony and then immerse the captured ants in an herbal brew that anesthetizes them. After hundreds of the ants are collected and sedated, they're brought to the tribe's shaman or medicine man, who very carefully places the ants inside woven gloves. These gloves are made from palm tree leaves and woven so that the ant stingers are pointed inward toward the palms and fingers of whoever wears the gloves. The ants are woven into the gloves while they're still under anesthesia. But soon they wake up and, angered by being caught and woven into a confined space, they become aggressive and ready to sting anything nearby. It's at this point that the ceremony begins. Before putting on the gloves, the ritual participants have their hands painted from the elbows down with genipap juice, a plant believed to protect them from the most dangerous aspects of the ant's venom. Then, one by one, the boys put the gloves on both hands. The gloves must stay on for about 10 minutes, though some sources say almost 30 minutes. During this time, the boys are led in a dance, which helps to distract them from the pain. The shaman and other participants start a dance along with the one wearing the gloves to distract him from the suffering. The stings themselves aren't too painful at the moment of infliction. The aftermath is much worse. After the time is up, the gloves are removed, but the pain from the ant's venom remains for the next 24 hours. A single bullet ant sting can take over a week to recover from, and the ritual participants sometimes shake uncontrollably for days. Systemic manifestations, including fever and chills, can occur even from a single sting, given the high potency of the bullet ant's venom. Those stung may also experience tachycardia, cardiac arrhythmias, lymphadenopathy, local edema, blood in the stool, sweating, nausea, vomiting, paresthesia, and limb paralysis. But the most amazing thing about the Wawa ritual is that it's only the beginning. After a boy completes the first glove trial, he must repeat it 19 more times. Some sources say 25 repetitions. Only after going through this ritual 20 times is a young man considered to have completed the full initiation and become eligible for marriage, hunting, and leadership in the tribe. During the ritual, participants are expected to show no emotion. Acknowledging the excruciating pain caused by the bullet ant stings is frowned upon if you want to be considered worthy of leadership. Why the Satere-Mawe practice this ritual? The danger of these rituals is very real, and the pain is even more real. So why do the Satere-Mawe continue to practice such an extreme rite of passage? The answer lies in their worldview and the conditions in which they live. The Satere-Mawe are a people who aren't too concerned with agriculture, despite being able to grow guarana. Instead, they focus on the qualities of strength and courage. In the Amazon, a tribe must be able to defend itself not only from predators, but also from hostile neighboring tribes. Furthermore, in an environment as dangerous as the Amazon, the tribe must be able to hunt as fiercely as they fight. As a result, warriors and hunters are highly revered in this society, and boys are taught from an early age to aspire to become warriors. In this context, the symbolism of the ritual becomes clear. Young men who aspire to be considered warriors must prove to the elders that they can withstand the worst that the jungle has to offer. The ritual also allows boys to marry and take on leadership roles. Furthermore, success in this ritual shows that the boys recognize the adult world is full of pain. They must prove that they will meet this pain with composure and self-control, and that they will be ready for the struggles and challenges they will face in the future. If members of the tribe can't handle themselves, the entire tribe will suffer or perish. While it isn't a direct test of the boy's strength, the ability to cope with pain and continue to function is valuable to the Mawe. By denying those who can't withstand the pain of the Tukandera sting, as the locals call the bullet ant, the rights to marry, reproduce, and hunt, the tribe allows stronger genes to prevail in future generations, ensuring the tribe's survival. An anthropological view of rites of passage. From an anthropological perspective, the Wawamat ritual represents a classic example of a rite of passage initiation, which marks an individual's transition from one social status to another, in this case, from childhood to adulthood. Rites of passage exist in virtually every culture in the world, but their forms and the degree of physical trials vary considerably. From bar mitzvahs to quinceañeras, from Rumspringa to Sweet 16 celebrations, every culture has its own coming-of-age rituals that mark the transition of children into adulthood. However, not all of these rituals are easy and involve celebration and fun. Other coming-of-age rituals are designed to toughen up children, make sure they're worthy, and prepare them for the life that comes with adulthood. The Satere-Mawe tribe's bullet ant ritual is an intriguing example of poisoning functioning as a culturally sanctioned method of intentional self-harm. It's a ritual among the Satere-Mawe Indians in which young men subject themselves to the venomous stings of the Paraponera clavata species of ant, or bullet ant, which is commonly found throughout Brazil. This ritual serves to initiate young men of the Satere-Mawe community into adulthood. In the case of the Satere-Mawe, the ability to withstand the stings of hundreds of bullet ants without showing emotion or losing composure demonstrates the very qualities of courage, endurance, and self-control that are necessary for survival in the harsh conditions of the Amazon. Comparison with other cultural practices of rites of passage. The Wawamat ritual is certainly one of the most physically painful initiation rites in the world, but it is far from the only example of a culture using physical trials as part of the transition to adulthood. In various cultures in Africa, Oceania, South America, and other regions, there are rites of passage that include tattoos, scarification, circumcision, fasting, isolation, dancing to exhaustion, jumping from heights with vines tied to the feet, bungee jumping in its ritual form, and other trials. For example, in some tribes in Africa, young men go through rituals involving prolonged fasting and isolation in the forest, where they must demonstrate the ability to survive on their own. In other tribes, young men must undergo painful tattoos or scarification, which serve as a visible marker of their new social status. What unites all these practices, including the Wawamat ritual, is the idea that adulthood does not come automatically with age, but must be earned through trial. Physical pain, suffering, overcoming fear, all of this serves as proof that the individual is ready to take on the responsibilities and challenges of adult life. From an anthropological point of view, these rituals also perform an important social function. They strengthen group identity, transmit cultural values and knowledge from one generation to another, and create a collective memory and shared experience that binds members of the community. How the ritual helps the Satere-Mawe preserve cultural identity. In the modern context, when the indigenous peoples of the Amazon face increasing pressure from the dominant society, the Wawamat ritual takes on additional significance as a way to preserve cultural identity. Journalists and anthropologists studying the Satere-Mawe in recent decades note that the bullet ant ritual has been practiced by the Satere-Mawe for centuries. But this rite of passage is now more important than ever, as it helps the tribe resist assimilation and preserve its unique identity. In conditions where indigenous lands are being invaded, when the younger generation faces the temptations of urban life, and when traditional ways of life are becoming increasingly difficult to sustain, rituals like Wawamat serve as a powerful reminder of who the Satere-Mawe are and what values they represent. Going through the Wawamat ritual not only gives young men the right to marry and lead, but also connects them with generations of their ancestors who went through the same trial. This creates a sense of continuity, belonging, and pride in their culture. The elders of the Satere-Mawe say that the ritual teaches young men valuable lessons, that life is full of pain and challenges, that true strength lies not in avoiding suffering, but in being able to face it head-on and overcome it, and that individual trial serves the good of the entire community. Scientific research on bullet ant venom and medical aspects of the ritual. From a medical point of view, the Wawamat ritual represents a unique case of intentional massive poisoning, which deserves the attention of researchers. Bullet ant venom contains various toxins, including peptides that affect the nervous system, causing severe pain, paralysis, and other symptoms. Researchers are studying the composition of this venom not only out of academic interest, but also in the hope of finding possible medical applications for some of its components. However, the main interest lies in the very fact that young Satere-Mawe men are able to withstand dozens of bullet ant stings and repeat this trial 20 times without serious long-term health consequences. This suggests a significant physiological adaptation or protective mechanisms, which may be related to the use of jenipapo juice, which is used to paint the hands before the ritual. Medical studies on ritual bullet ant poisoning among the Satere-Mawe note that ritual participants may experience systemic manifestations, including fever, chills, tachycardia, cardiac arrhythmias, lymphadenopathy, local edema, blood in the stool, sweating, nausea, vomiting, paresthesia, and limb paralysis. However, despite the severity of these symptoms, most participants recover without medical intervention within a few days. This suggests that the Satere-Mawe have deep traditional knowledge of how to manage the risks of the ritual, including preparing participants, using protective plant extracts, and providing collective support during and after the trial. Educational approach to understanding the Wawa mat ritual. It is important to approach the understanding of the Wawa mat ritual not from a position of condemnation or sensationalism, but from an educational point of view, recognizing it as a unique social adaptation that helps to understand the evolution of human communities and the influence of the environment on cultural development. The Wawa mat ritual is not a manifestation of savagery or backwardness, as some observers from the dominant culture might interpret it. It is a complex cultural practice that serves many functions. It marks social transition, transmits cultural values, strengthens group identity, prepares young people for the real challenges of their environment, and connects generations in a single cultural tradition. Anthropologists emphasize that to fully understand such practices, it is necessary to consider them in the context of a specific culture, its history, environment, and value system. What may seem extreme or even cruel from the point of view of one culture may have deep meaning and functional significance in another. The modern challenges and the future of the Wawa mat ritual. Today, the Satere-Mawe face numerous challenges, including pressure on their lands, climate change, deforestation, the invasion of illegal miners and loggers, as well as cultural pressure from the dominant Brazilian society. In this context, preserving traditional practices, such as the Wawa mat ritual, becomes an act of cultural resistance and an affirmation of identity. The younger generation of Satere-Mawe, by going through this ancient ritual, not only proves their readiness for adulthood in the traditional sense, but also declares their commitment to their culture and their people. Some observers note that in recent years, the Wawa mat ritual has also become a means of drawing attention to the rights of indigenous peoples and the protection of their lands. Documentaries, journalistic reports, and even the participation of some Western researchers and travelers in the ritual with the permission of the tribe have helped raise awareness of the Satere-Mawe and their culture. However, this also creates risks of commercialization and tourist exploitation of sacred practices. The leaders of the Satere-Mawe must balance between the desire to share their culture with the world and the need to protect the sacred aspects of their traditions from profanation. Lessons we can learn from the Satere-Mawe culture. Studying the culture of the Satere-Mawe, and in particular the Wawa mat ritual, offers us important lessons about human adaptation, cultural diversity, and the value of different ways of being in the world. First, it reminds us that there is no single right way to organize society or celebrate life transitions. Cultural diversity is the richness of humanity, And each culture has developed its own unique answers to universal human questions about meaning, identity, and belonging. Second, the Wawamat ritual illustrates the deep connection between culture and the environment. The ways in which the Satere-Mawe have adapted to life in the Amazon, including their rituals, knowledge systems about plants and animals, and social organization, are all products of thousands of years of interaction with a specific ecosystem. Third, studying practices such as the Wawamat ritual helps us understand the limits of human endurance, the ability of people to give meaning to suffering, and the role of collective experience in shaping identity. Finally, the history of the Satere-Mawe reminds us of the importance of protecting the rights of indigenous peoples, their lands, and their cultures. In a world where biological and cultural diversity is under threat, preserving unique cultures such as the Satere-Mawe is not just a matter of justice. It's a matter of preserving the richness of human experience for future generations. The Wawamat ritual, with its bullet ants and palm leaf gloves, may seem extreme and even incomprehensible to us. But for the Satere-Mawe, it is a sacred tradition that connects them with their ancestors, transmits values of endurance and courage, and helps them preserve their identity in a changing world. And in this, perhaps, lies the most important lesson. Each culture has the right to define its own paths to adulthood, its own criteria for maturity, and its own ways of transmitting knowledge and values from one generation to another. Our task is not to judge, but to strive to understand and respect this cultural diversity as an integral part of human heritage.